The existing economic paradigm has served us for 500 years. And even if I wanted to get rid of it tomorrow, it's not going away anytime soon. Big companies exist, big flows of materials and commerce around the planet, the impact of Wall Street. I think what we have the opportunity to do here is to tell a better story about Bhutan's concept of gross national happiness and how this can enable all people to have a higher quality of life, to get what we look to the economic paradigm now to give us in ways that better enhance community, that deliver greater health and well-being in the population, that do a better job of taking care of this one planet that we have. And the interesting news is that doing this is better business. I work with companies around the world, and there are now 45 separate studies from the likes of Goldman Sachs and Harvard and MIT and McKinsey, all showing that the companies that are behaving more sustainably are more profitable. And the Prime Minister has now asked some of these companies to come here to Bhutan to become part of this effort to make the concept of gross national happiness into the rising development paradigm so that we can do a better job of bringing genuine development to people who are poor, bringing greater health to communities that are suffering, and at the same time preserve a magnificent environment.
So what you're saying, actually what you were saying earlier in the conference, what we're practicing is bad capitalism. Capitalism on its own is not bad. You were even referring to Adam Smith and economy, how he actually talked about sustainability. And it is about sustainability at the end of the day. So stop demonizing the economy.
Yes, if something is unsustainable, what that means is it won't last. And the economic collapse that the world is in the middle of now is just one symptom of the unsustainability of the way we now do business. We have the opportunity to begin implementing business in a more sustainable way. And as I said, the good news is when you do it that way, it's more profitable. It creates more jobs. It delivers greater well-being. We have the opportunity to unleash entrepreneurs. Young people the world around want to solve the problems facing us and do it through business. And I think the reason the Prime Minister has asked me to come and be a part of this expert working group is that I work with businesses. I work with these young entrepreneurs. For example, I was just with some entrepreneurs from India who have a technology that will take the exhaust from burning anything, burning coal or burning wood, take the carbon dioxide and make it into carbon nanotubes. When you put carbon nanotubes into plastic or into cement, it makes it stronger. Industry wants carbon nanotubes, but at the moment they're very expensive to make. These young people have come up with a way of making them much less expensively in a way that takes the waste from conventional power plants. These kinds of better technologies are, if you will, part of the old economic paradigm. Entrepreneuring is part of the old economic paradigm, but it's also part of the new economic paradigm that we can solve these problems by focusing on businesses that are more sustainable.
So then you don't see a conflict between human beings and resources, a versus relationship. You don't see it in that manner.
Well, it is, if you will, a corollary of the round earth theory, that resources are limited. There is only so much rock on the planet. There's only so much oil underground. The actual limits, though, are more in how we use resources. So the fossil fuel companies, the oil, gas, coal companies, have something like 2,790 gigatons of carbon locked up in the coal, in the oil, in the gas that's still in the ground. But the climate can withstand the emission of only something like 570 more gigatons. The glaciers in the Himalaya are melting. In my country this year, a superstorm hit New York and flooded the subways. Around the world, in the north of Africa, there are 18 million people now at risk of starving because the rains haven't come. We are already seeing the impact of climate change, as your Prime Minister says so well. And if we continue to burn all of that carbon that's still in the ground, we will have roasted earth. We will have huge human suffering the world around. So we are going to have to change.
So the way forward would be innovation.
Yes.
Innovative entrepreneurs.
Yes. And the big businesses. For example, there's a company called Unilever.
Yes,
makes
Unilever.
Cosmetics and a whole array of products. Their CEO, Paul Polman, 2 years ago said, we are going to implement the Unilever Sustainable Living Plan. We're going to cut our environmental impact in half by 2020. We are going to source everything, every feedstock we get that comes from something that grows from sustainable agriculture. And we're going to lift 1 billion people out of poverty. This is the CEO of a major Fortune 100 company committing to sustainability. Walmart, which buys product from all over the world, has committed to go 100% renewable power, to buy sustainable products. This year they tied the rewards that they give to their buyers, the personal incentives, the bonuses, to whether or not the buyers are using a sustainability scorecard in picking this company as opposed to that company.
Wow.
The U.S. military is going renewable. Our Secretary of the Navy, Ray Mabus, has called for the Great Green Fleet, ships powered by biofuel from algae,
Oh.
and fighter jets flying on biofuel. We have military bases that are converting to 100% renewable power. And the soldiers like it better. They have little rolls of solar panels that they, like on a nice sunny day like this, they would set out to run their communications, and they say it's lighter than the batteries we used to have to carry to run our radios. So it enhances our ability, in that case, to do war fighting, in the case of Walmart, to make money, and in the case of community, to have people living higher quality lives. So we're not calling for sacrifice and giving up, but rather for a transition to a much better way of living.
But then there is also the argument, what if you haven't reached that point where you have the luxury of doing away with some stuff? Because the examples that you pointed out to me, very successful people with enough resources, with enough options actually. But for a country like Bhutan, or for any other developing nation for the matter, where your dreams still lie ahead, you haven't reached that place, do you think it would be an option, a viable option, an attractive option, is what I'm asking you?
The concept of sustainability that is embedded in gross national happiness is, frankly, the only way that people like Bhutan, countries like Bhutan, the other developing countries, are going to be able to afford to develop. If we waste oil, you will pay a higher price for it. My country can outbid you on the world oil market. But if Bhutan shifts so that it's getting its energy from sun, from wind, from flowing water, from sustainable agriculture, these are things that you have here that can ensure that your homes are more comfortable. For example, I was just looking at the big building, which is very cold.
Banquet hall.
And looking at, could we put solar on the south side that would just pump hot air in all the time? It's a massive stone and masonry building. If you get the hot air flowing through it, that'll soak up the heat and then release it slowly over time. You'd have a very comfortable building.
And not very expensive.
And not very expensive. Whereas if you try to heat it with oil or coal or even electricity, that's electricity you could have been selling to India. So why waste it which is what we're doing now. We have electric space heaters running. You ought to be making money off that electricity.
That's a very important example.
Yeah. And using the sun to heat your buildings.